Hey everybody, JCB here with the Awesomist, and you're watching the Awesomist Awesomest Awesome List. Alright. For real this time. Some of you may know that for April Fool's Day, I actually did a video that was disguised as a top 10 rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain list, and if you haven't seen that video, you can click the link at the end of this video. For those of you who maybe aren't already subscribed to my channel, I occasionally do a video about Six Flags Magic Mountain, and those videos are by far the most popular on my channel. About 1,000 times more popular in some cases. But I do other types of content. I try to keep this channel as varied as possible. So I do things like reviews, I do travel vlogs, I do top 10 lists of every kind of topic you can possibly think of. So after you're done watching this video, be sure to check out my other stuff, as you might enjoy it, might find it interesting or funny or informative. As I mentioned in my last video, I've gotten a lot of requests to do a top 10 rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain video. And I'm sure many of you have wondered why it's taking me so long to make such a video. It seems like a no-brainer, right? I already do Six Flags videos sometimes, I already do top 10 lists sometimes. Doing a top 10 rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain should be one of my first things I do, right? So why is it taking me so long? Well, because it's kind of a no-brainer. There are only 16 thrill rides to start with, which I know is a lot for one park. Many other Six Flags parks would love to have that many rides to choose from, and I'm very grateful. But when you're talking about a top 10 list and there are only 16 rides to choose from, it kind of becomes a bottom 6 list. Which is sort of what inspired me to do that April Fool's Day video in the first place. It's more amusing to talk about the bad rides at Magic Mountain than it is to talk about the top 10 best rides. Now I should also point out that I'm making this list before the new Justice League ride has been finished. I have no idea if that ride will earn a spot somewhere in the top 10, so take that into consideration. Obviously, I'm also leaving out little kid rides and rides that can be found at your county fair or local carnival. I will, however, include a few non-thrill rides just to keep things interesting and because I genuinely like those rides. And really, this is just my opinion. I'm just a guy. I have no real authority to decide what ride is better than what other ride. So if your favorite ride didn't make the list or isn't number one, try not to be mad. It's just one guy's opinion. That being said, I do go to Six Flags Magic Mountain quite a bit, and I have ridden almost every ride more times than I can count. In fact, while doing research for this video, I actually rode all 19 of what I consider to be the non-kiddie rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and I scored them all in 2 categories on a scale of 1 to 10. Those 2 categories are, of course, level of thrill and level of comfort. So ideally, the perfect ride would score high in both of these categories, getting a 10 in comfort and a 10 in level of thrill. I will show you the chart I made with this data at the end of this video, but as for right now, without any further ado, here are my top 10 favorite rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 10, Jetstream. Jetstream is a family-friendly water flume ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It was created by Aerodynamics and was opened in 1972, only a year after the park itself first opened its gates. Some of you may know that this ride was renamed the Arrowhead Splashdown between the years 2001 and 2006 as part of a marketing campaign with Arrowhead Mountain Spring Water. Jetstream is a pretty straightforward ride that seats 4 full-size adults or several children per boat. The whole ride takes about 5 minutes, and that includes the slow climb up the giant conveyor belt lift hill. After you reach the top, you'll enter a tunnel where the first small drop gives you a taste of what's to come. You then bump and slide down the stream until you reach another much larger drop. This ride is actually pretty comfortable, but it's not very thrilling. Even the big drop at the end isn't very huge, although the nice mist of water that you receive when you go down that last drop is quite refreshing on a hot summer day. And even when the line is really long, you can typically get through the entire line queue in about a half an hour, which is pretty short, unless of course the ride breaks down. This is a nice relaxing kickback ride that cools you off and lets you have a few laughs with your friends and family, and that alone earns it a spot at number 10. Number 9, Apocalypse. Now a lot of you hate this ride, and I totally get it. It's been described as a rough woody, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, when the ride first opened, people praised it for how smooth it was for a wooden roller coaster. And actually, as of the filming of this video, it's currently undergoing major construction to replace large segments of the track in hopes of returning it to its former glory. Originally opened in 2009 as Terminator Salvation the Ride, this coaster was rethemed to a more generic apocalyptic look after the Six Flags licensing deals had ended. it. This is one of my favorite rides at the park, and even on its worst day, it was still a Rolls Royce compared to Ghost Rider and Knott's Berry Farm. Although, in fairness, I heard that ride went through the same refurbishing process and is a lot better now. Apocalypse has that old wooden coaster charm, and with a top speed of 55 miles per hour, it gives some of the steel giants a run for their money. It's pretty well balanced in the comfort versus thrill department, and with an all-new track, that can only get better. Number 8. Roaring Rapids. Roaring Rapids is another water ride, and you've probably been on one just like it, as just about every amusement park has one of these big inner tube rides. Disney's California Adventure has the Grizzly River Run, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom has Whitewater Safari, Knott's has Bigfoot Rapids, and Six Flags Magic Mountain has Roaring Rapids. Basically, you sit in a big inner tube with 11 friends or strangers and play a game of Russian roulette. Though instead of a pistol and a single bullet, you have an inner tube and a roaring rapid of water that can splash any one of you at any time, or basically anyone who's facing backward when you go down a drop. I'm a sucker for any ride that lets you share an experience with as many people as possible. And sure, with any roller coaster you can share the experience with the person sitting right next to you, with this giant round raft creates a shared experience between you and 11 other people. Even if you ride with strangers, you'll get off feeling like you've been through something together. This ride is great for those days that are over 100 degrees and you're just looking to get soaked, although the randomness does mean that you might walk away unscathed with nothing more than a little mist. Number 7. Superman Escape from Krypton. At this point, I feel like I have to start justifying why each of the picks going forward isn't number 1, because really when you think about it, any of them could be. Get used to seeing this footage, because with a total ride length of 29 seconds, you will probably see it play a few times as I talk about this pretty epic ride. As you can see, the ride launches you backward at 100 miles per hour, shooting you straight up a 90-degree 415-foot tower before dropping you back down and plunging you back into the station. This ride began as Superman the Escape, and the carts used to face forward, but when you got to the tower there wasn't much to see other than a Superman statue staring back at you. And granted, the drop backwards was fun, but I have to say starting the cart backward is way better. The ride is fairly comfortable, especially when you sit in the very back row, which does not have the restrictive arm guards the other rows require. My only complaints about this ride is that walking underneath as a ride flies overhead is a loud and painful experience, and that the line is often prohibitively long, which wouldn't be a deal breaker on its own if it weren't for the fact that the entire line queue is inside of a fake ice cave that is incredibly cramped, loud, and often very hot. Number 6. Goliath. Yes, Goliath is only number 6. This is a coaster that still intimidates newcomers and little kids every single day the park is open. And even though it's standing next to Superman, which is almost twice its height, Goliath's giant drop still feels like it towers over everything. The ride starts with a 255-foot drop, reaching a top speed of 85 miles per hour, followed by a second drop of 185 feet and enough twists and turns to please even the most jaded of coaster enthusiasts. The ride finishes with a helix that pulls 4.5 Gs before rolling back into the station. One thing you might notice is missing from this coaster's layout is any kind of loops or inversions or corkscrews. This ride does not go upside down, but even with that being the case, many people are still scared to ride Goliath even after riding more intense rides. The only problem with Goliath, other than the 4.5 G helix which causes some people to black out, is the long lines it often has. This is one of the most popular rides at the park, and because of that you'll have to wait for it. Number 5. Tatsu. Surprised? Tatsu is normally at the very top of most people's top 10 rides list. In fact, it's still very fun to ride even after you've ridden it a million times. Like Goliath, its reputation results in some long lines. It's not uncommon to wait well over an hour to ride Tatsu. This is a flying coaster in which riders are tilted headfirst toward the action. You'll feel like you're strapped to your very own jetpack flying over the park. This ride was custom made for Six Flags to fit the contours and elevation changes of the park's namesake mountain. The whole ride is intense, but the most memorable element has to be the 124-foot pretzel loop that'll make you feel like you just did a giant slow-motion front flip. This ride cost $21 million to build, but I think its popularity proves that it was a great investment in the park. This was actually my favorite ride for a very long time, but after riding it so much, I came to realize it's more majestic than thrilling. It's just a smooth ride that's a pleasure to go on. Number 4, Full Throttle. We're on to the final 4. Full Throttle is a steel launching coaster built by Premier Rides. When it was built, it featured the world's tallest loop at 160 feet. It also features the world's first top hat element on a loop. The entire ride takes less than a minute and begins with a 70-mile-per-hour launch directly into the ride's key element, that 160-foot loop. After a few banked turns and a dive loop into a tunnel, the ride comes to a stop. Then suddenly you're launched backward before losing momentum and rolling back into the tunnel and being launched again. Yes, a third launch. You're launched out of the tunnel and over the top of the very same loop you just went through before returning to the station. This ride is pretty intense with that loop pulling you out of your seat both times you interact with it. The first time when you go upside down in the loop, you'll feel like you're falling out of your seat as you go through it. And then again at the end of the ride, as you go over the top hat element and dive back down towards the station, you will again feel that weightlessness as you lift out of your seat. And did I mention this is all happening with only a lap bar? There are no shoulder restraints on this ride, making it super comfortable. And with a capacity of 800 riders per hour, you never have a very long wait in line, unless it breaks down. Number 3, X2. I know, number 3, right? I'm being serious though. That last video, that was a joke. This is serious. X2 is without a doubt the most thrilling roller coaster at the park, and yet the most beastly roller coaster is only number 3 on this list. I know. This was my favorite ride for a long time. You begin on your back looking up at the sky while soothing music plays. As you begin your way up the lift hill, the mood changes, the music changes, the whole thing starts to feel a lot more intense. The audio tracks, which play through the speakers mounted to your headset, really add to the experience. Then there's the mini drop, which freaks out a lot of people, followed by the main drop that flips the riders around toward the ground. This is a running theme of X2. The ride loves to play with your expectations and your sense of direction. One moment you'll be flying head first like Tatsu, then you'll be flying ass first on your back. As far as I know, there are only 3 of these so-called 4th dimensional coasters in the world, and X2 is the only one in America, making it a must ride. So why isn't this coaster number 1? Well, to sum it up, whiplash. Whiplash is a major concern when riding X2. I've gotten it several times while riding this ride. And yet the only way to not get whiplash is to kind of cram yourself into the sort of rib cage restraints they have so tight that it's hard to breathe. Then you won't bounce around so much, but being jammed in there so tight that you can barely breathe isn't really a very comfortable way to ride any roller coaster. The lines are also really long on most days, so I'll typically skip this amazing ride just for that reason alone. Number 2, Drop of Doom. This one's probably a surprise to a lot of you, but when you consider the criteria of comfort versus thrill, Drop of Doom scores very high in both of these categories. This is also the tallest ride at the park, and only the 2nd tallest drop coaster in the world, with the tallest only being 15 feet taller. Drop of Doom is the only ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain that still thrills me to this day. There's something about being suspended that high up in the air as the tower slowly sways in the wind and the train from Superman comes flying up out of nowhere. A lot of the thrill on this ride comes before the ride even drops, as you're hanging there in the air listening to a recording of Lex Luthor talking about how this is the most important moment of your life or some such nonsense. He's just yammering on and on and on. You're thinking about how the cable could break while you're falling, or the brakes could fail, or maybe the whole ride just breaks down and now you're stuck at the top of this giant tower unable to get down. Then Lex Luthor finishes his sentence and the music swells to a finale. You brace yourself for the fall and nothing. That's weird. Oh shit! As I said, this is the only ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain that I haven't gotten used to yet. And it actually freaks my wife out so much that she gets this weird anxiety where she doesn't even want me talking to her. And because of that, I actually considered proposing to her on this ride, but I didn't. Number 1. Alright, this is it. My favorite ride at the park as of this recording, the top ride of my top 10 rides at Six Flags Magic Mountain list is Twisted Colossus. I don't think too many people would argue with me that all top 6 rides on this list could potentially be number 1. It's all just a matter of opinion. But for me personally, Twisted Colossus stands head and shoulders above them all. This ride really is the full package. Record-breaking stats? Check. Charm of a wood coaster? Check. Smooth ride of a steel giant? Check. Loads of thrill? Check, check, check. You get 2 huge drops with insane angles. You get a Top Gun stall, you get high-five banking turns, serious airtime on 18 airtime hills, and a 0G roll, all while racing another train. This coaster not only goes upside down, it leaves you dangling there, all without ever feeling even a bit uncomfortable. Yes, this ride too features only a lap belt to hold you in place, which is nice considering you're on a ride that takes about 4 minutes. And then of course there's the history of Colossus itself. Built in 1978 at a cost of $7 million, the original Colossus was at the time the world's tallest, longest, and fastest roller coaster. It was featured in several movies and TV shows, including National Lampoon's Vacation, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, and Step by Step, among others. Colossus was a staple of Six Flags Magic Mountain for over 30 years, and the park did not take its passing into the history books lightly. In fact, they spent the entire 2014 season devoted to Colossus. During the spring, they rode the ride backwards, so that people who hadn't had a chance to experience that yet got a chance to do so. And then in the summer, they devoted the entire area of the park to Colossus and its closing. They rethemed the entrance and even set up a National Lampoon's photo opportunity outside to remember one of the ride's most iconic film roles. The final 36 hours of the ride featured a marathon in which 28 brave riders attempted to ride Colossus over and over and over again until the ride's final pull into the station on August 16th. At the end of the day, only 6 riders had completed the entire journey. This photo I used for the thumbnail of my first Six Flags themed video was taken the day we went for our last ride on Colossus. There's my wife waving goodbye to the old coaster that I'll always remember for rustling my jimmies. My wife even owns a piece of the old wooden track that she got from a friend of hers. And I made a point to get one of these stamped pennies before the ride was shut down for good. But now standing on the shoulders of the past is Twisted Colossus, a reimagining worthy of the old giant's name. Due to the fact that there's always 3 trains running on Twisted Colossus, the wait time is generally less than a half an hour. Though sometimes, on busy days, this ride's popularity is on full display. So that's my list. Again, it's just my personal opinion, but you know, it's right. So anyway, here's the chart I made with all the data that I collected while making this list. As you can see, X2 had the highest thrill score across the board, but it's not all that comfortable. Viper is also pretty high in the thrills department, but scored the lowest in comfort. Hashtag fuck Viper. Tatsu is pretty damn thrilling and only slightly less comfortable, as lying in that flying position at the end of the ride while you wait for the train ahead of you to load up gets a bit uncomfortable. Gold Rusher is low on thrills and only medium on comfort. Twisted Colossus is a 9 in both departments, which is why it's number 1. Full Throttle is slightly more comfortable than thrilling, but it's still a strong showing. Goliath suffers the same problem, as does Scream, but as you can see, we're getting less and less bang for our proverbial buck as we go along. Bottoming out on Ninja, which is pretty comfortable but not very thrilling. Superman is comfy but not too thrilling, as you feel kinda safe and secure in that big bulky tank of a train. Batman has decent thrills but isn't very comfortable. Those damn shoulder harnesses that B&M loves to use are a menace to comfort, and the fact that only the front row has any kind of view while every other row can only see the back of the car in front of them kinda hurts its comfort score. Riddler's Revenge has some decent thrills but will leave most men unable to have children. Green Lantern is decent on thrills but a bit low in the comfort area and can beat you up quite a bit. Drop of Doom actually tied Twisted Colossus, scoring 9s in both categories, but it's hard to be uncomfortable on a ride that's basically a bench. The New Revolution is low on thrills, but is surprisingly comfortable now that they have removed those stupid shoulder harnesses. Apocalypse is the most average ride on the list, scoring 5s in both categories. Jetstream gets a 1 on thrills, but a 9 on comfort. I like it because it's quick and easy fun. Tidal Wave scores similarly for similar reasons, while Roaring Rapids scores a bit higher on the thrill side and only slightly lower on the comfort end of things. Basically, wet butts aren't comfortable. I hope that clears up my reasoning for you. The real oddball is X2, which I listed higher than its score justified, but that ride is just so much fun. It was my absolute favorite for so long, it deserves to be high up on the list. It's also by far the most thrilling ride at the entire park, possibly at any park in the entirety of California, maybe all of America. I haven't been everywhere. I can't say it's the most thrilling ride in the world, but it's gotta be pretty damn close. I mean, there's only 3 of them in existence. So for that, it gets the number 3 spot. So what do you think? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with my list? What's your favorite ride? In fact, how about what if you had a special flash pass that allowed you to ride any 10 rides without any wait at all? What 10 rides would you choose and why? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I guess there's some new little notification thing you gotta click on so you get notified when I post a video, which I thought subscribing was supposed to do for you. In fact, that's how it used to work, and YouTube keeps changing things, and I don't know why. Anyway, Do all that stuff so you can be told when my next video goes up, as I release new videos every week. And until next time, keep it awesome. Full size, super fast speedway. Rev your engine at the starting line, then slam your pedal to the metal and blast off for a road race that'll make your little ones feel like they're in the Indy 500. Then immediately slam on the brakes because the ride attendant is yelling at you to stop. But then feel free to shift into turbo and reach speeds up to 3 miles per hour.